Look at this. This is in New York, man. It's over the Hudson River. You understand? Let the white man tell it. He said he'll tell you he'll build all of this. This was here, so you mean to tell me this was here? So you mean to tell me that the Native Americans that I seen in pray, they was here before this, and they was here longer than this, and they didn't build anything like this? This is what destroys the Native American myth that they try to perpetuate over the so-called just misnomer American Indian, i.e. the Moor. This is how they flip it. Same way, like you mean to tell me that niggas from Europe came from Europe and built this and then let it fall into disrepair to such a degree that today this is all that's left of it. And they was here in that, you mean to tell me the Native American, the bison riding of chasing people, they was here before this and never built nothing like this? And they didn't build the pyramids and the mounds and the cities that was already here, that you put under the marsh, that you put under the swamps. So they didn't build the ancient stuff, and they didn't build the modern ancient megalithic stuff. So what did they do? What did they really do here? What did these niggas really do? What was they really contributing here? They were squatting. They wasn't doing, if you going by their story, they were squatting, having sex with each other women, and killing each other. How is that different to what niggas is doing today? It's even worse for them. I read some crazy statistic a while ago where they said like 4 out of 10 of them niggas is morbid alcoholics. What? A morbid alcoholic? My great uncle was an alcoholic his whole life. He was never morbid about it. I tell you that. He was never morbid about that. He was never morbid about drinking. You know what I'm saying? He was never morbid about that. So this is, like I said, it's there in New York. You're not letting people even see this. Like with all of the millions that these people got, you figure somebody in the hood would do that? No, we got to do it. Because what it is that they can't do nothing with it. They can't even touch it because this is outside their jurisdiction. So, like I said, so you mean to tell me these Native Americans that was allegedly the first people here was here, and there was pyramids and cities and temples and underground networks and chambers and all of this, and they had nothing to do with that. Then you also had this type of stuff that was also here. Look at the Cordovan arches. What are you talking about? This is all Moorish design. Go back and look at the Castle of Lions in Seville. It looked just like this. Grown over. So you mean to tell me they didn't have anything to do with this either, but they were still the first people here? How does that work? How do you do that?
Lie.
She said lie. Yes. You lie about it. That's just how you do it. Look at this. So you know what this means? This means that this goes all the way down into the water. Look at this right here. All the way down. This go all into the mountain. This right here. You go in here. You go all into the mountain. And whatever we left in here that we don't forgot. This shit go all the way down, thousands of meters down into the water. Look. Look at this. Based on this structure, this is a rotund. Rotunds were hollow. You could go down. This probably goes down into the water. Just like in the movies. It's like in the movies, yo. Just the type of stuff we was doing out here. This is the type of stuff we doing out here. This is how we living out here. It's right in New York.
Love, peace, and power, everybody. Welcome to the Mystery Arcade Occult Multiversity. My name is Kilel Kiano, aka Konami Codes. Thank you so much for joining me. Forgive me some technical difficulties. For anybody who may not be familiar with tonight's guests, they are known for a great many things, um, perhaps a little too well. My guest tonight is someone I respect greatly, someone who has always, as the youngins are saying these days, stood on business, to the point of being a futurist, um, being able to predict trends, being able to see what certain powers that should not be were going to do long before they did it, to the point of being consistently bidden for his information and not necessarily credited, at least in my eyes. This brother cannot receive enough props just for being who he is and doing it the way that he's always done it, which is just righteous. I'm talking about Aseer, the Duke of Tears. We're trying to get him to be able to connect because they won't let him in. I've been trying for the last 2 hours to get the streams to go through the Instagram. They are not having it. Um, Thankfully, it is going through on YouTube and Facebook. Love, peace, and power. Portia, thank you for joining. Love, peace, and power. Almara, thank you for joining. And everybody else within the sound of my voice. I'm waiting for Aseer to call me because again we have tried a couple of methods and it's just not going to let him go through. So until we have him joining us, I'm going to go over some of his works. I have been, it's interesting as I go through my journals to prepare for tonight. I have been following Aseer for just just about 17 years. I know for a fact since 2007, maybe a little bit before that, but um, when YouTube was fresh, when YouTube was new, when YouTube was recommending some incredible videos next to, not like the algorithm does now. Um, I see the Duke of Tears was someone you could rely on. He was someone you could count on to force you to study because he was going to tell you something that you did not know. Um, I I have a love and respect for comic books that goes back to me learning how to read at the age of 3. When I heard Aseer talk about the science of superheroes, he has a magnificent series that you can get at his website. His links are in the ticker below. Um, Absolutely magnificent. One of the things I want to talk to him about tonight is his new app. His app is absolutely magnificent. It has a large amount of his lectures. It has links to his empresses. Shout out to Love, Peace, and Power to her. Their natural organic products. Um, so many things, so many different facets. And one of my absolute favorites, his, I'm not sure, what to call it even after all these years. The Dark Skull 418. I could call it a comic book novel. I could call it a ancient tome from the future. Um, it is magnificent in every sense of the word. It teaches you so much through the narrative of the comic, through the narrative of a story, and the amount of science is it weighs a literal ton. I'm happy to say that he has recently put out a new edition of it. I'm very, very excited to speak to him about it, some of the updates, what is different. and what remains the same. Um, in terms of being a futurist, one of the things I noticed, just one of the things I've noticed, in the book, he has a map of the firmament, a map of this land, so to speak. Um, and that has become very popular, something extremely similar. And that's along the lines of what I mean when I say um, a lot of people will take your work and run off with it, especially when it's great. Um, Aseer walks with a certain respect, a certain humbleness, but he is not. Um, he is very much in his own lane. Um, the level he's able to teach and recite what he has learned, the way he's able to connect the dots, and give you an outlook. I would not be who I am, so I want to thank him. Whether he's a hold on, love, peace, and power.
Again,
Peace, God. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. Finally, right?
Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining me. We're going to make this work as best we possibly can. For as long as I've known you and seen you doing your thing, this has been a very likely scenario. You know what I'm
Me too,
saying?
right? I'm glad other people see what's going on. Because other people I see, they don't be happy. So whenever it comes to this, like I was trying to call you right back, and then right when I went to call you back, it's like my phone just dropped. Like I can't open it back up. I don't know what's going on. Crazy.
It's wild. I was telling the people, I've been trying to upload the stream to Instagram for the last 2 hours. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I knew, but I'm honestly surprised it's going through. But um, it would almost be questionable if they weren't here. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, man. Exactly. It boggles me sometimes. Like I be seeing people doing streams for hours, no problems. The minute I get on something, sometimes it's always like this. I don't know.
I will take that as a badge of honor. You know what I mean?
Bro.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you. It is truly an honor to have you join me here. I have been a follow. I was speaking about. It's interesting. Officially, to the best of my records, I've been following you since about 2007. That
Thank you, man.
that was when you are most welcome. That was when I first caught your Science of Superheroes lecture.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah. That was back. That was back in like 2003, 2002 or something.
right,
Crazy.
right.
It's so long.
You know what I mean? Like it was mind blowing because you caught things that I had noticed because it's kind of hard to explain some of these things to people who don't necessarily read that medium,
Right.
or understand how important or how telling it actually can be. Because aside from movies, especially from people like Oscar Michaud, you can understand the influence, especially in terms of people like Pascal Beverly Randolph, who of course is the influence for people like Doctor Strange, or people I've heard you speak on who I can never hear enough about, Black Herman, for example.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, man. Those are the forerunners of a lot of the so-called spiritualist movement, mediumship movement that was coming back in those days. There's a great book on that called Conjure Times that goes into a lot of those obscure people that they don't really talk about that kind of laid the groundwork for what people consider or what people call today the so-called New Age movement and all that. You know? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Just
So yeah, a lot of that was from that era, from those people at that time, you know.
Indeed, indeed. One thing I want to get into from that lecture before we move on to something else, because um, for anyone who may not already know, it's a brilliant way to show you how non-juvenile or non-children or kid-like comic books actually are. In terms of Batman, there's a book you went over where they really told on themselves because, as you put it, they have to put certain templates, especially their own, into historical context to make it more acceptable. There's a story they did called Batman Book of the Dead, and you went through it. You gave so much in just the first 2 minutes, from what became known as the gesture for Wakanda Forever, which of course they got there first because that was the first or one of their original templates going back to 1939, 1940. Can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, a character they call Batman is actually an old Mayan deity called Kozamahu. And if you were to pull up, Batman, they'll say Aztec, but Aztec is like a modern word they kind of made up to try to displace how long the Mayans been around doing their thing. But Kozamahu was or is the keeper of the underworld and the protector of the people as they are shepherded from one state to the next. So there's also another version of Earth or Anubis, or in Norse mythology. Well, no, I would say Greek mythology, the ferrymen on the river Styx, all of that type of stuff. So comic books themselves have been used by modern society. In a modern context, they all, like Stan Lee and all of these people, started off in the military doing comics because the military was using illustrations to, tell people how to use certain weapons, what rations to use and all of that. So they found it was better with illustrations because a lot of people from that time couldn't read. You know what I'm saying? So they needed artists to come and convey what they needed to grunts, for lack of a better word, to know what to do in a manner where they wouldn't have to necessarily read it in text. Because like I said, most of these people from the age of the Great War were illiterate. You know what I'm saying? So once they started adding words to it or whatever, they realized it was a good use or a good aspect of propaganda that they could use to convey certain messages, you know what I mean, that could get across much quicker than sitting there writing the whole text about it, you know what I mean? And so it wasn't until somewhat after the war they started marrying the text and the words together to kind of compound it, because after the military, a lot of people, after World War I, World War II, a lot of people became more literate, you know what I'm saying? Because they have been exposed now to the different countries and different languages and stuff. So it became more prevalent. So they found ways to contribute to that and get more people into it by creating imagery. So around the time of World War II now, when Hitler and all of that started coming through, they wanted to propagandize that a lot more. So that's when they started to do what they call pulp magazines. You know what I mean? Because the magazines themselves came from excess paper. So with all the excess paper that they had, they basically conformed that into the first literal pulp magazine, they took the paper, the excess paper that was used, and it was like mashed up in like a pulp, and then they would spread it out and then put, you know, the comic or the serials, as they used to call it, on the pages, and started to create, you know, mythological heroes based on older heroes and stuff to do that. So Batman, when it first started, you know, he was shooting people. You know what I mean? Batman had guns and all that. And there was another character called Captain Marvel, who we know as Shazam, who at the time had a young sidekick. So they needed Batman to have a sidekick. But really, Batman was based on an earlier character called the Shadow. And the Shadow was more, like I said, he was a killer, like he was killing criminals and all that. But this is around the time that the United States was really kind of against China. So the character that the Shadow would fight was Fu Manchu. You see what I'm saying? So he was a stereotypical, like yellow skin type character. You know what I mean? Because they would always do that. They would always have a character that was kind of against who they were, who fighting against who they were socially. So for the Shadow, it was Fu Manchu, which represented China. For Captain America, it was the Red Skull, which represented Hitler. You see what I'm saying? For you know, it was the methodology was always to use an archetype that was somewhat generative to what their goal was in programming the people. You see what I'm saying? So at first, all of these were basically just real propaganda magazines. And then eventually they realized that, you know, they could make money from it like everything. So after the war, that's what Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and these people took what they learned, right? Like with the Black Panther, you know what I mean? At first they had him as a white dude, but then after Stan Lee and Jack Kirby got evidence from a lot of the stuff that they had taken from the Kenyans and about the society that lived in Mount Kilimanjaro, they took all of that and took the real science that they was getting and then put all of that into the Black Panther. You know what I mean? And that's where you get the heart-shaped herb and the technologically advanced people and the, you know what I mean? Like all of that was based on like real stuff that they had basically shepherded and now that they were going to basically use and create copyright for it. There's a brother named Prince Michael that goes into that specifically because I think he's one of the copyright holders now to that. And low key, that would lead to a lot of the problems that Disney and stuff is having now behind using a lot of that energy and a lot of that content without giving, you know what I mean, full accolades and respect to the people they got it from. You know what I mean? Because they basically stole all that. Jack Kirby and the niggas stole all that. And it was basically proven in court a little while ago. And then when they didn't go forth with doing what they were supposed to do with that story that Prince Michael talks about, was that they basically got a curse on them. And that's when you start seeing Disney basically just fall apart into the shamble of what it is today. But comics themselves, just like most literature itself, is all based on using stories to convey imagery to help engender society into a certain moniker. So when I did science superheroes back in the day, one of the things I talked about was how, like, in the next couple of years, superheroes and superhero content and stuff like that, that's going to be the dominant form of entertainment. You know what I mean? And I was right. You know what I'm saying? Because nothing made more money than Marvel at its height. And those stories were all about real aspects and real psychological processes that were happening. You know what I mean? Whether it be Tony Stark representing the Tin Man, which is the TIN, tax ID number, or whether it be the Hulk representing Osiris, or another version of Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because that's what the Hulk is based on. Which is really another semblance of another aspect of the atomic age. You know what I mean? Because Hulk was also represented by gamma radiation, which is a real form of radiation. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit is real. And, Spider-Man being a Nuncy, you know what I mean? The Spider God from Africa. All of these things are just archetypical energies that they tend to use to engender people to associate or disassociate with certain things in the general society or the general population. People just think that it's whack though. That's what they think. People just think that it's trivial children stuff, but nothing that they make $100 billion off is trivial. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Excuse me. Most definitely. When I look at certain characters, what they did with Barack Obama, they've done with a lot of characters, especially in the last 10, 15 years. Miles Morales, the current Spider-Man, much closer to Anansi, being red and black. But he's already better than Peter as a teenager because he has this static shock, and he can also turn invisible. You see,
right? Because they tend to always give melanated characters electricity powers, like Black Lightning and Black Adam and Static Shock and Black Vulcan and Storm. Like, they always give them electric powers, if you notice, because the melanin itself is an actualizer of electrical magnetic frequency. So they want to like keep them in that, but then that also pigeonholes them. Like Miles Morales, like the real reason why they created these derivative characters also is because they losing the copyrights to all of them. You see what I'm saying? So they either want to destroy the original character so that way people won't really rock with it and they'll still rock with their version of it, or they want to just perpetuate it enough to be able to to mess up the brand enough where they could still use their derivative and try to make their derivative better. That's why they do a thing called putting over. Like Miles Morales is cool, you know what I'm saying? But Miles Morales is Miles Morales. He's not Spider-Man. He's Spider-Man in name only. And he's Spider-Man because they may actually be losing the copyright to Spider-Man to the Ditko estate. You see what I'm saying? So they got to try to put their version of Spider-Man over and make him seem better than Peter Parker. But we all loved Spider-Man growing up. Black, white, Asian, Indian. It didn't matter because even though he's Caucasian, we don't necessarily look at these characters as Caucasian. You know what I mean? Like, I never looked at Peter Parker and was like, wow, it would be great if there was a black Spider-Man. I never thought that. I always thought that, wow, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. You understand what I'm saying? And then once I got older and found out about Anansi and all of that, that didn't make me look at Peter like, oh, see, Peter's just a white version of Anansi. No. Peter Parker is Peter Parker because he was a great allegorical character to display the concept of having power and having consequences go with that power. That's what I associated the character Peter Parker with. I don't give a damn if he's Caucasian or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't so racially caught up as a child that I automatically somehow thought that I couldn't be that because Peter Parker was Caucasian. You understand what I'm saying?
Most definitely.
So I never looked at myself, let's say, as inferior to Peter Parker because he was white. If that's the case, then I wouldn't have dressed up like Spider-Man in Halloween back in the days. You dig what I'm saying? Everybody had a Spider-Man costume. Everybody liked, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody liked Peter Parker. So by the time Miles Morales came out, like, that's cool. Like, he's cool. And he's dope. And he's got his own stories and stuff. But even in the writing of him, they still don't know how to convey, like, the best that I've seen is in the Spider-Verse stuff. The that they came out with the movie and all that. Like, that was cool because it gave him more of a distinct identity. He did, but they still needed Peter Parker in the movie, see, to put him over. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And in that, they had to make the Peter Parker in the movie, that Spider-Verse movie that we saw, he had to be sloppy, right? He had to be kind of like a goofy father, like, you dig what I mean? But that's not like the real Peter, like as we remember him or as we know him in the comics. But that's what they do. They're so racially caught up and so juxtaposition based that they don't know how to make a character good without making another character look bad. You see what I'm saying? And that's a greater allegory now to how they view life, how they view real people. They don't know how to make Caucasian people seem cool they don't know how to make black people seem like regular people without having a Caucasian, let's say, bad guy to be there to victimize them or make them feel like they have to overcome them. You see what I'm saying?
Indeed.
It's
Oh,
all
indeed.
a psychological program that they start on us from little kids. So, like I said, as a little child, I never looked at Batman as, like, he was Caucasian, right? But I'm not looking at him like, oh, I need a black Batman. Like, that's whack. Like, there's already Batman. Make up another character, you know what I mean? That don't have to have his name. That's why when they do shit like that, like they created a black Batman character, and they called him Batman or I Am Batman, and it's basically Batman is a black guy in a Batman suit. Like, that's cool, but we've already got Bruce Wayne. Like, Bruce Wayne is Batman, okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? And we all like Bruce Wayne. White, black, Asian, don't matter. Because, again, when you become so racially transfixed that you can't take yourself out of something without putting yourself in something, then they got you. They got you. They got you thinking that somehow or another you're inferior when you're not. And these characters don't really exist, but they exist. Like, there's a realm in which they probably do exist, you dig? But we're not in that realm. In this realm, they're only two-dimensional. So in this realm, they're really just allegorical instances to learn hypothetical lessons from. You know what I mean? That don't necessarily bear fruit or bear reference in this reality unless we intone it to do so. And that's why it's so powerful. That's why when in Infinity War or whatever, when Tony sacrificed himself, you see what I'm saying? And he said, I am Iron Man, and it did the snap. That was it. Like, we all felt that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because we had a buildup of watching these characters go through these trials and these tribulations, and we had an investment in the entertainment aspect of it. You dig? But each one of these characters, if you always notice, there's always something about them that is a tragedy. T'Challa lost his father. You know what I mean? Tony Stark lost his father. At one point, he was a drunk. He was suffering from PTSD. Captain America was displaced out of time. You know what I mean? Black Widow was basically human trafficked. You know what I mean? And put under a heavy MK Ultra program. The Hulk was abused as a child. You know what I mean? Thor had issues with his father, and Loki at the same time was dealing with the fact he actually was adopted. So there's abandonment issues. You see what I'm saying? Thanos actually wanted the world to be better. However, he was insane. You know what I mean? Like, they call these the mad type. You know what I mean? Doctor Strange had to overcome debilitating illness. See what I'm saying? Like, all of Peter became Spider-Man based upon his uncle getting killed. Batman's parents were killed in front of him. Like, These are real world circumstances. Things like that actually have happened to people. You dig? It's just that people don't necessarily have the money to actually become a vigilante and do shit like that. But in that, they can identify with the tragedy, because with every hero, there's a tragedy. You know what I'm saying? But the tragedy is the labor that the hero has to go through, and what they refer to in literary sense as the hero's journey, which is the journey of all people. Luke Skywalker, look what happened to him. See what I'm saying? So now what they're doing, they're trying to rehash and redestroy all of that to make it where the bad guys always win. You know what I mean? Where everything that you liked about the stuff that you grew up on that helped give you a moral fiber and moral character outside of race, just based on the story. They want you to redo all of that and basically say that all of that was bad. That it's better for you to have an identity more so than to have integrity and value and valor and chivalry, honesty. You see what I'm saying? That's what superheroes and stuff used to be about. However, during the 80s, there was a whole deconstructionist movement with superheroes in which they wanted to, you had writers like Alan Moore, and who is a warlock. He's the guy that wrote Watchmen. He actually is a straight warlock and anarchist. You know what I'm saying? Who used to do rituals and stuff like that before he would write the stories and all that. Like, this is real shit, you know? And he wrote The Watchmen as a deconstructionist story about the cautionary tales of superheroes and stuff, which was great. And then Frank Miller came out with The Dark Knight, you know what I mean? Which was great, you know? And there was another guy named Richard Vitek that started writing Constantine, which was a story about John Constantine and all of that, which was great. The problem is a lot of writers after that became caught up in the deconstructionist aspect of writing heroes. And so it wasn't so much about them being heroes, it was about how they dealt with it. See what I'm saying? And the darker side of what they had to deal with and all of that, you know what I mean? Whereas that's not what they initially was set up to do. I mean, it was propaganda from the beginning, but you had certain people who what we liked about the stories was watching the heroes overcome the problems. You see what I'm saying? And then it became about the heroes being the problem. You see what I'm saying? And then that again goes to demoralize that. That's when we get the rise of people like the Punisher, which is a great character. You know what I mean? However, he became problematic for them after a while, especially during the Trump era, because then you have people associating the Punisher logo with the right wing and the police. You know what I mean? But the Punisher killed corrupt cops and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he would do. He would kill everybody that was using their power for the wrong purpose, or using, social authority as it means to be corrupt. Like, he killed those people. However, once the Marxist, communists, feminists, Satanists started taking control of these entertainment facilities, they needed to try to go flip these narratives and try to get you to not like these characters. See what I'm saying? But it's all just literary. It's all really about the literary aspect of how these things affect us in life and social engagement. You know what I mean?
Most definitely. I want to use one more example before we go to Dark Skull 418.
Thank you.
There's a comic character, Marvel and DC have always kind of been like the quote unquote twin pillars of the comic book industry, the two majors.
Right.
I would consider Image, perhaps Dark Horse, could also be argued.
Yeah. Dark Horse was like the third. That was like the unofficial third. Dark Horse and Image. They were like the third and fourth after DC.
Definitely. There's a character from Todd McFarlane called Spawn.
Yeah.
And Spawn, you're going to be kind of hard pressed to find a character that denotes more of our science so blatantly as Spawn. Can you speak to Al Simmons at all?
Yeah, I remember when the first Spawn came out. Like, I remember, it used to be a comic book magazine back when we used to read books and magazines. They used to have a comic magazine called Wizard. And every week they would come out, or every month they would come out with a new Wizard, and you have to do comics and a new artist I would be talking. This is when it was a thriving industry before the present Whisper Network, which I'll talk about in a minute, took over and have turned it into the trash that it is now. However, the anticipation of Spawn was almost bigger than the actual book itself. So by the time the book came out, I remember buying it. Like, I was working at a place called the Forbidden Planet back in the days. And I was there, and I remember when it came out, and it just like blew the doors off a lot of shit. One, because of the design, because he was a mixture of Spider-Man, Batman, I would say Daredevil, and Entragran, the Demon from DC Comics. However, the story of him was he was a mercenary, right, who basically got tricked by the government, wound up selling his soul to come dying, selling his soul to a demon called Malvosia. It was a real demon, by the way. And agreed to come back, but in order to do that, he would come back as a Hellspawn, which is basically a soldier in the army of the devil that would then do the devil's work for him while on Earth. And then in that, he decided he didn't want to do that and tried to go back to his family, but his family has already moved on. His black wife and black daughter wound up having a baby with his white best friend. You know what I'm saying? And then the story basically goes from there as to how he deals with it. And as it really starts to go into further issues, it really gets into the occult, to the depravity of man, to how a soul is actually sold. Like, he got into real heavy concepts. And the guy that did it, Todd McFarlane, the reason why it also popped was because he was such a famous and revered artist at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody loved Todd McFarlane. And, McFarlane, the Max or the Mix, that those are Moors in the sense of the name Mac or Mick, coming from the Irish and Scottish type, like the McDuffs, the Dub glasses. So he already had that aspect of it, of him in them. But that energy of him, you know what I mean, involved is just, like I said, now, once he came out, it really sold a lot of books and influenced a lot of other characters that came after that. Like that single-handedly shot Image, which was the comic imprint, which was started by McFarlane and a bunch of artists that got tired of being scammed over and screwed over by the big two, where they left and they started their own thing. You know what I'm saying? And once they started their own thing, each one of them had their own creator, own property. You know what I mean? But then years later, like most people, they wound up selling out and going right back to selling their characters right back to DC or whatever, and then took jobs. You see what I'm saying? And now, we're stuck with what we're stuck with, which is really not the best writing cash anymore, because everybody with talent they got rid of in the past 10 years. In the past like 7 to 10 years, they basically just destroyed the entire industry. Right around the time that the entertainment industry started going through this whole diversity, inclusion scam they got going on, that's when they started to destroy all of this. Because like I said, because every 25 years they want to get rid of everything that was from before. But the problem is our generation, specifically Generation X, which itself is also a scam, I think, because generations are generations. Like the fact that we name them is another form of social engineering. But to get to the point, our generation, or Generation X, was the last human generation to really create. We were inspired by the things that we came up with in pop culture, and it created entire cultures and entire industries off of those. You know what I'm saying? Crazy.
Very
And so
true.
we remember, so like we could listen to a song today and know where they sampled the song from, or where that song sampled that song from, and where that song sampled that song from. You know what I mean? We grew
Right.
up with the originals. So we know the quality of things. We know how good things were. These kids don't know what was really good. So they're reading stuff and watching stuff now, and they think, oh, this is how as good as it is. No, it was better. You know what I mean? The propaganda we used to get back in the days was better than the propaganda we get now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But the problem is they done dummy down everybody so much that anything mediocre that seems mediocrely good is like light years ahead of whatever is that's out basically now. And that's really where they messed up. And like I said, we as Gen X, we kind of like stop aging to a certain degree. Like we're not, we still have work ethic. We still have understanding. Like a lot of dudes my age, like I said, we still reading comics. We buying action figures and stuff that we couldn't get when we was kids. We playing video games. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
These kids, have jobs and everything. You know what I mean? Taking care of family and all that, but we still watching the good movies, like cartoons, X-Men '97 and shit. Like we still living like we was back then. These kids today, they don't have none of that. They out here, you know what I mean? Self-medicating, taking perks and Adderall. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We're living like kids. They're living like burnt out adults. It's crazy.
Straight up, you know what I'm saying? It's absolutely insane. And it's like, I'm 43. I've never felt older in terms of like teaching and speaking to the youth. I'm honored for those who listen. Shout out to y'all, because I know a lot of y'all have been waiting for this, as have I. But like, a lot of the history isn't there. Like one of the reasons I asked about Spawn, like I know, Todd McFarlane became very popular specifically because he was drawing Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And he was
the Hulk.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? He was drawing Spider-Man at a time where the black costume was very popular.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, man. And then he drew that comic with Wolverine and Hulk when the Hulk was great. And he had Wolverine and him fighting where Wolverine was cutting them up, and it was great. Like it was mad action. It was still men. This is when men were men and women were women in comics. So it wasn't ambiguous. Like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't caught up. If you wanted to get ambiguous stuff or more, arcane, that's when you would get into like indie books. So I used to read like the Major 2, X-Men, but then I used to read like a lot of indie books like Nexus and Cerebus and Badger and like stuff. Yeah, them type of books, Grendel. Like I used to read a lot of different types of comics, Grimjack, like a lot of stuff that was kind of obscure but was very, very potent. And then there were other magazines more adult, like Love and Rockets and Omaha, these types of books.
Yeah.
That also were like somewhat literary. So I would read these comics, and in some of these comics they would reference books. And then from those comics I would go and read the books. So that's how I would find out about like Machiavelli and Candide and Voltaire, and like just reading comics, you're hearing about all these different references and where stuff was coming from, and Homer and the Odyssey and the Iliad and all this shit. So I started reading all of that stuff too. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I never wanted to be the type where people talk about stuff and I didn't know what they was talking about. So I would always want to like get hip to stuff that wasn't necessarily popular or what my peer group wasn't necessarily into. I was always into that because again, it would be like the same when I would be listening to like hip hop. Like we came up in an era where you would take the drums from Bob Skaggs and then you would take a bass line from Miles Davis and then take horns from Arnett Coleman and then take a bass line from Ron Carter and then take, percussion from Chick Corea and then put that all together and have a whole new song. So in growing up like that, it made you listen to your parents' record collection and shit like that because you never know, you find a good sample or something. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. So then that created an ear in us where, like, to this day, I could hear a song for I could hear 5 seconds of a song and know if the whole shit is whack. You know what I'm saying? Like off top, just off top, we be like, oh, that's gonna be whack. And just know, that's how it was because we used to care about lyrics, we used to care about beats, we used to care about this stuff. They made not caring cool, and that was the whack part of the hip hop shit. Like hip hop was never based on ignorance. Hip hop was based on I'm up on shit you not up on. You know what I mean? Like that's essentially what hip hop was. Like I'm up on this shit and you ain't even heard that yet. Oh, you hearing that now? Oh, I heard that, man. You know what I mean? Like that's what it was about. So it wasn't about just being ignorant for ignorance sake. It was about being somewhat counterculture, but then being able to assimilate and re-alchemize what the mainstream said was dope and filter it through our lens of what was good. You know what I mean? So it wasn't about us being like stupid. You know what I mean? It wasn't about us being just totally vulgar. Even the vulgar shit. Like we grew up and used to hear like songs like that girl's a slut, but like Just Ice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like you know what I mean? That like in hearing that song, it wasn't like I would hear that song and then look at all girls like they were sluts based on that song. Like that's not how it went. It was like the song, it was more about the wittiness and the craziness of the song. You know what I mean? But it wasn't about taking that song and then superimposing that on every female. Like every female was a slut. Like bitches ain't shit. Like it wasn't like every female wasn't shit because Snoop came out and said that. Because girls would be singing that song. And when they would sing that song, we used to ask them, yo, how do you feel about that song? Oh, he ain't talking about me. Exactly. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We had the discernment to know, you know what I'm saying? That this ain't about every female. This is about the females that's like that. You dig? And even if you was like that as a female, you wasn't going to cop to that at the time when that song was out. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like we had discernment. We had a certain degree of respect for ourselves and the fact that this was something that was ours. We created this genre. You know what I'm saying? Like niggas can act like, oh, well, it was everybody contributed to hip hop. No. The people that contributed to hip hop was the people that was there. And yes, okay, cool. Let's say he was Jamaican. Let's say what's his name was Bayesian, Bambaataa, whatever was Bayesian. They wasn't playing Bayesian music in the street, in the park. They wasn't playing Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't doing that. They wasn't playing that. They was playing break beats made by American people. You dig what I'm saying? James Brown and these types of things. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't dropping calypso in the middle of the party. Like that never happened. You know what I mean? So yeah, there was Charlie Chase and you know what I mean? Whoever else that may have been, what they call Latino or Hispanic or whatever. But they wasn't playing bachata in the you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They wasn't adding bachata into the mix when we was in there with Planet Rock and all of that, okay? That wasn't happening. So if anything, the influences of hip hop was again James Brown, funk, what you call it? funk, which was James Brown, some jazz, right? Some rock, you know what I'm saying? And that's really it. Like I said, breakbeats and shit. That was really it. Like that's what I was hearing growing up. When I had my little cardboard and linoleum breaking in the street and shit, that's what was popping. You know what I mean? Niggas was not playing, you know, Buena Vista Social Club and all of that shit and Chicory. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't part of it. All of the Puerto Rican people I know was breaking to the same stuff I was breaking to. None of that was what you call it influence. None of that was let's say Caribbean influence and all that. Matter of fact, when I was coming up, the Rastas and the Jamaicans and them, they wasn't with hip hop at all. You know what I'm saying? Like that, they didn't get down with this shit till Shabba Ranks came out.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Super Cat and Junior Cat and Major Demus and Chaka Demus and them. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's when they came. That's when it was like the Jamaican dudes like, okay, now we can embrace some of this. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but no. Like I said, up until Shabba, nah. Y'all was not. They wasn't even rocking with it, and it was specifically that because that was dance hall, that was rockers, and like yeah, they was on the mic chatting and all that, but that wasn't rap. It was rhyming, but it wasn't rap like hip hop rap. It became that once it merged, and that really came through BDP. You know what I'm saying? But to say like it was all Hispanics and it was Jamaican. No, it was people of those nationalities. But on mainland America, when we was creating that shit after the blackout of 1977, when everybody went out and stole equipment, and the next week everybody was in the park with Park Jam, that's all you heard. So when Dougie Fresh and them came out with the show and all of that, that's what kind of really set everything off. You dig? And so up until then, we was with the Pause tapes, with the Treacherous Threes and all of them. And that's what we was on that. That's when it was heavy rhyme influence. When Dougie and them came out, that's when we started transitioning into now the Rakim type and the Lakim Shabazz and the King's Son and all that. And that was all 5% shit. It was all Islam shit. You know what I'm saying? It was all of that. And that was running hip hop for a lot of years. And then we had another transition after Run DMC. We started getting into EPMD and all of that. And now they start refining the craft of how the music sound with the samples and the scratching and the So by the time Gangstar and them came out, you know what I mean? It was dope. And then we did have people that was like Beatnuts was dope. They was Latin, but they was, you know what I mean? But see, the thing with Beatnuts is that they would throw in little like percussion and stuff from that. So they bring in their culture into it, but they still made it hip hop. You know what I mean? Like they was all hip hop. It wasn't Latin hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't none of that. That shit didn't pop off till reggaeton. That was years after. Niggas stopped listening to Beatnuts and all that. And then who else we had? We had Cypress Hill. You know what I mean? We thought they was all from New York. You know what I'm saying? And that's what? That was a Cuban, Italian, and two Cubans and an Italian. You know what I'm saying? Because Muggs was Italian. And then they brought in House of Pain, who was three mixed, three what you call this? And even in Everlast, the white boy, Everlast, he was 5%. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, how are they trying to remake this shit now? I'm making it to something that it never was. Like, nah.
I haven't heard mix since Oz. You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, bro. Like, this is what happened. You know what I mean? This is before anybody even thought of an Eminem.
Word.
You know what I mean? They had precursors. They had Vanilla Ice and all that, but Vanilla Ice, that's Suge Knight. You know what I'm saying? Like every one of these niggas that is white that came into it through somebody who was already black and established.
Always.
House of Pain, Cypress Hill. See what I'm saying? What's his name? Vanilla Ice. That's Suge Knight in them. Eminem. That's Dr. Dre. There's always somebody black behind them. So let's stop acting like they got more sway in this than the people who created it. You know? That's what I mean, man. Creation. That's what this generation is missing. They don't want to create. They think that shit is corny. Like they would, you know what I mean? Like they're corporate based. They've been brainwashed to believe that the corporations is where all of this shit coming from. When most of these corporations didn't even want to put out rap. They wasn't trying to put that shit out. Till they seen it making money.
Oh, indeed. Not till they had that, that secret meeting at the White House with Eazy-E, you know what I mean?
That's it. That's it. And they had to do that to stop Public Enemy. We was raising the consciousness too high. Like, we systematically shut crack down. We made crack is whack. Niggas was like, you doing crack, nigga? Oh, that shit is whack. Like, you whack. Like, get out. Like, we single-handedly stopped a multi-billion-dollar CIA operation with a damn rap song. Like, it's like, nah, we got to get rid of this. We got to make the drug dealers cool. And so they come out with New Jack City. See what I'm saying?
And Ice-T has played a fucking cop ever since.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about Ice-T was Ice-T had a song called Cop Killer.
Yeah.
With a fucking rock group.
They threatened that nigga, got it too hot. He had to pull the records, and he had to agree to play a cop and dress up like a cop on the cover of Rolling Stone as the ritual. And then after that, he been playing a cop on TV ever since. He even married a white girl. Like, this nigga had to, and got rid of Darlene. Like, you got rid of Darlene, nigga? Like, that's what sold that Power album cover out east, where I was at. I remember when that shit came out. They was like, yo, you seen that chick on the cover of that Ice-T album? Niggas was buying the album for Darlene on the cover with the pump shotgun.
Oh,
like,
that's weird.
how real it was. Like, you know what I'm saying? But even him, when he made 6 in the morning, right? That all came from Schoolie D. The first gangster rapper ever was Schoolie D out of Philly, people. With the PSK. PSK for making that dream. People always wonder what the hell does that mean. As for the way we scream and shout, one by one I knock you out. What? You can't. So what did Ice-T do? 6 in the morning, police at my door. Right?
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
Yeah, God, like we set the trends, and somewhere New York just got too tribal and too caught up, and they just didn't want to let nobody else get it. But they would make fun of niggas from other regions and stuff, and then that just put the fire under them, no. And then it started popping off. Like, niggas wasn't listening to Miami hip hop, because most Miami hip hop back then was just bass. You know what I'm saying? Up until like Luke. And then after Luke, Trick Daddy opened the door, and that was it. But Trick Daddy was just the down south ODB. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, don't get me started on Trick Daddy. I could, you know what I'm saying? There's a
word, man. You know, but he had some good records, like Slip and Slide. They started doing their thing. And then from there, then it went out to I remember when I first got the Outkast album, playing that in the hood, niggas was looking at me like I was crazy. But then, you know, you couldn't deny it, man. That shit was hard. And then they started opening up a little more. And then, like I said, like you said with NWA, man, that Satanist Eazy-E came through with his little satanic shit, and then it just popped off, you know?
Yeah, but, indeed. Most definitely. You know, people don't talk about that enough, you know what I'm saying? And I'm from Detroit, so you know I grew up on Bone Thugs and Harmony, but like you talking about Satan's angels of harmony, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit went crazy.
I done seen the pictures of Eazy. They said he had a picture of Lucifer in the office at one point. I done seen that. But you know, like I said, man, you had to know something was up when he went to the Reagan thing, you know what I mean? But Reaganomics is what created crack. Like, that's the whole crack era. That whole Reagan was the first drug dealer to flex a Gucci belt, you know what I mean? In that picture he got with, like, you could look up the picture of Reagan standing with little Venus and Serena. And then you're going to Venus and Serena Williams, and you're going to see them both with these T-shirts on that got DNA helixes on it. And that nigga Reagan in the middle flexing the Gucci belt.
Yeah, indeed.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this fix been in for a long time. For a long time. We just catching up to all of it now. You know what I mean? But that's why, like I said, man, like we stay forever young, because we still have the verve of remembering what it was like to actually be about something other than murder and crack selling and clout chasing and backdooring and shit. Things, like I said, man, they got the game twisted, man. You know?
Indeed. One thing about, having more than a 2-week news window memory,
Yeah.
those of us who can actually remember, we can see so much. The longer you're here, the longer you're paying attention. Even without paying attention, you catch things you don't necessarily expect to catch, especially when you read. For those who remember the movie The Warriors, that of course was based on a book. Now there are a couple stark differences in the book from the film, but one of the most important things was you had gangs, and specifically in New York, who were killing each other until the advent of hip hop, right?
Till hip hop, man.
So, you can understand how powerful that becomes along with reading. I bring that up because there was a show about 4 years ago called Lovecraft Country, which is also based on a book.
Yeah.
And there were some very, very stark differences from the book or the original source material to the HBO series. One of the things that they did specifically, and spoiler alert, and if you don't know by now, I mean, it's 4 years later. One of the reasons that the show was canceled was not just because of what they showed you in the finale, but because of where they planned to go with that in the beginning of season 2, which was they literally turned off magic for quote unquote white people.
Yep.
And that was a big no-no. So much so to the point where Jonathan Major's career has been completely destroyed, because on the day he got arrested, which was I can't remember the day, but the day he got arrested, it was equal to his whole name in gematria. Not only that, but he was literally trapped in the quantum realm as Cain.
Yeah.
So, if you understand what they're actually trying to do, it's actually brilliant, but people don't really see it. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, man, definitely. The Lovecraft Country was real heavy, man. And what was whack about it, though, was, again, it all ended with the sacrifice of the heterosexual melanated god, right? They didn't have, when you finally watch it, if you go back and watch it towards the end of that last episode, they didn't have to kill him. But I was like, wow, they really going to, and then who helped him do it? A black woman and a white woman. See what I'm saying? Working together to kill this man and use him as a portal to bring out the energy that they wanted. Because the Satan's little helper in this new modern version of white supremacy is the so-called brain dead black woman. You know what I mean? Like, look at all of these. Look at Fannie Willis. Look at Tiffany Hayner. Look at all of these corrupt so-called black female judges and AGs and attorneys. Look at Letitia James. Look at what what they have done to these women by feeding them their ego, by telling them that they God, by telling them they don't need no man, by telling them that they're the backbone, by telling them that they God, right? And the people that's telling them this is they mortal enemy. You know what I'm saying? But they rather believe them than believe the one who was made for them on this earth. And that's because they started that whole welfare state shit from from my mother's generation to now, and they bought into that. But they chased the man out the home and then blamed the man for not being there. You know what I mean? And then the man was so weak where at the time he had been broken down. Remember, this is also after Vietnam. This is after the push from all the people from the South into the North. This is after segregation. This is after they done killed Martin and Malcolm and Bobby and Johnny and Medgar, and right? This is after they done away all of this. They done literally demoralized the entire country and the world, and we're left with that. And so there was a rise of Black power through the form of blaxploitation movies and stuff. And then you had the boule Black elite come out and start to hate on them because it was so stereotypical. You know what I'm saying? And then the so-called Black entertainment class, that's the class now that had to be used to represent the leadership of the Black community. And it's been like that ever since, where they use entertainers to try to inspire you to do something instead of real people with literary and acumens and psychology and things like that. No, they want you. They don't want you to be influenced by, Professor Smalls or Dr. Claude Green or whoever. No, they want you to be influenced by Sexy Red and Kim Kardashian and you know what I mean, Drea Michaels and Ari Lennox and these types of people. You know what I mean, Erykah Badu. This is who you get your spirituality and all shit from. And I mean, that's cool, but these people are not leaders. You understand? They can't be, because they are products of the same oppression. They're just on a different level on the show. And they're there to remind us that some of us can get to that point, but not all of us. And we can only get to that point by singing or dancing or acting, right? Or going to their schools and all of that. Like all of these schools, Spelman and Howard, and like all of these were set up as military installations after our people became prisoners of war after losing the Great Confederacy Wars. You know what I'm saying? That led to the unification of Rome, aka Washington, D.C. by 1871. So all of those schools were basically military installations to groom so-called Negroes or Moors into being Negroes and Blacks and get away from any indigenous aspects of their culture and get them assimilated into this new version of what they think this place is supposed to be. And the entertainment, that's why they had to get you focused on the Harlem Renaissance, so that way you wouldn't hear about all of the so-called Tulsa, Oklahoma free towns and Moorish towns where they had their own oil wells, their own oil fields. They had to make you think that everybody was a sharecropper. So when you look at the book 100 Years of Lynching, and you see these black men and black women and black children hung, that you just think, oh, those are just poor sharecroppers. No, those were kings and queens and emperors and mayors and governors. You understand? And governors of the towns that these white folk had come into and reclaimed under the auspices of Rome. Because people don't know that Washington, D.C. was named Rome before it was Washington, D.C.
Indeed.
You understand? Like, that's Rome. So it was and is that old aspect bastion of the Roman Empire that had redistributed itself and taken over the Republic with the Act of 1871, which is a coup d'etat over the original so-called Republic that, again, was founded by all of those indigenous, i.e. Moorish peoples and ancient Mauritanians that erected all of these buildings. Like, go back and look at pictures of New York in 1921. And what you'll see is a bunch of white folk living in the front, living in the bottom of all of these giant buildings that had already been there. The infrastructure of all of these cities had already been here. You understand? For thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. But they want you to believe that because they done wrote founded in 1871 that this building was okay. No, that's when they found it. You know what I'm saying? That's when they found it and then moved in. You know what I'm saying? That's why all of these immigrants, people that came over here would look like shanty and homeless and stuff. Because they were. They wasn't from here. They didn't build any of the infrastructure here. We did. Our ancestors did. For hundreds of thousands of years. But because they didn't watch Alex Haley and Roots and shit, they think that that's what it is. So, you know, and then they created a whole industry off that grift. A whole industry making us think that we're from another part of the world. All to make us believe that we're not here now. And, you know, one of the biggest Freemasonic secrets is the fact that, you know, we are already home. Even Martin, that's not even his name. Even Michael Luther King said in one of his last speeches that the so-called black men and women languish in the land, in their land of their ancient forefathers, in exile. So we've been exiled from the true republic for which it stands, and then have been domesticated into this demonocracy that they call democracy, which is not mentioned in any law in the so-called Republic of the United States. So that's only an aspect. Democracy is only a byproduct of Roman occupation. You see what I'm saying? But they done turned the Moors into Romans now. And so they go along with all of this shit like it's always been that way. And it's only been this way for about 150 years. United States is only 228, let's say 251 years old. So it's got to go into a decline before it goes back to its original state in which we are now in. So they want to make sure that if that happens, we go down with them. But again, what you mean we white man? That this don't apply to all of us that know the difference. And believe me, everybody else in the world knows the difference. They just depend on our ignorance. That's why they're so upset about the black vote all going the opposite direction, moving away from that. Because if the blacks move away from democracy, that means what? They're moving away from Rome. And that means what? All Romans going to have to fall again. You see? They don't want that. So that's what I'm saying, like with the Jonathan Majors thing, like him being sacrificed in Lovecraft Country at the end of the movie, that was the setup for him. And then they decided they're going to turn him into Kang. Now, if people don't know, in the comics, Kang is a descendant, is a man from the future at a time where he wound up taking Dr. Doom's time machine and learning how to manipulate time. And then in that, he went into different, not only time streams, but in that he decided to go into the parallel aspect of time, which is what they call tangents. This was touched on in the movie Tenet. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but y'all should go back and watch that movie.
Classic, new classic, most definitely.
Because that character that black man is playing, that's Kang. That's Kang. You understand what I'm saying? Because Kang, not only to mention it, because in the comic books, Kang was white, first of all, up until like he's still white in some of the comics now, but up until like maybe the movie came out, you know what I mean? He was white. So what they do with the diversity shit is they want to try to displace the white characters for black characters. Because entertainment is run technically by Jewish conglomerates. And Khazarian Jewish people hate Anglo-Saxon white people. I don't know if you know. That's because of us. Because those Khazarians would be put into would be rounded up by those that weren't from Khazar, who were close to us in the form of like the Templars and stuff like that. So they always had a beef with them. There's a book called The 13th Tribe by Arthur Koestler that gets into that. There's another book called The Iceman Inheritance that gets into that, and another book called Chosen People of the Caucasus that illustrates that part specifically. But anyway, so Kang, in the future, he was able to not just go back and forth in time, he was able to go tangentially in time. So he would go into different time timelines, and then in those timelines meet variations of himself. See what I'm saying? And then what happened was they all started getting cool with each other. Like he said in Loki, like, oh, hey, I like your hair. Oh, I like your suit. Hey, what's going on? Whatever. But then because Kang is an egomaniac, right? All of his different versions then wanted to basically be the main version. And they started to not remember who was the main version, who was Kang Prime. See what I'm saying? And so they began to fight one another and then use their individual timelines as the armies to be able to do that, which then sent time itself into a loop, which then led to the ultimate destruction of everything. So something had to be done. So the one who chose to be the Prime Kang, he then unified all of them together in what they call the Council of Kangs. And then they started to go back into time to then set up what would eventually happen in the future to prevent it from happening almost. And that's when he winds up in ancient Egypt under the name Ramatut. See? So Jonathan Majors now being chosen to be Kang then becomes the arbiter, the archetype of this time energy, because Kang in that context, just like in Tenet, that character who doesn't have it. If you notice in the character in Tenet, he doesn't have a name. They just call him the protagonist. See what I'm saying?
Indeed. That movie Tenet, man. You know, I still feel like it went over a lot of people's head.
Oh yeah, and they do that specifically. But in that movie, essentially, he is the guy who is sending messages from the future to set it up in the past.
Exactly.
You understand? But in that movie, this is what I mean. What's different about Tenet is that it's not about going back and forth in time. It's about time being past and present being an action that is taking place simultaneously. It's not one or the other. It's one on one side and one on the other. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So him being Kang, because that's the other thing. Jonathan Majors read for Kang too. I mean, Denzel Washington, the dude in Tenet, he read for Kang, and they was gonna give it to him. But Majors came in hot off the Lovecraft shit, so they went with him. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So in that, they're both so that's Kang in two movies. You know what I'm saying? With the same outcome. But the problem is they didn't, because they had such lackluster writing and such whack low standards, they thought they could do the bare minimum and the shit blow up just for the fact of it being a black man as Kang. And he could have been great as Kang if it was more of a movie about him. But they needed to throw the Ant-Man, and they had to make the ants communists, and you see what I'm saying? And they had to get the daughter to be the hero, and then he wants to get killed by ants. So how, like Thanos wouldn't have fell to no ants. So at the same time, you bigging the black man up, you also destroying. And so that locked Majors now into that, like you said, that quantum field where he had already been sacrificed by the white woman. And I guess right after that, he did that cover of that Ebony magazine where he was in all pink and shit. Remember?
Right.
So right after that, they probably would have came to him with something, because right before that, you had him also playing in the Michael B. Jordan movie with Killmonger. So you had Killmonger, which start with a K. Then you had Kang, which start with a K, both in the same movie. See what I'm saying?
Indeed. Well, plus they were in what was that? Creed Part 3.
Right. Which was all based upon Apollo. See what I'm saying? It was all based on Apollo's son, because Lil Creed is Apollo's son. And remember, Apollo is synonymous to Apollyon, and Apollyon is synonymous to Shiva, which is the god or the goddess of destruction. You see? See what I'm saying?
Indeed.
So this is all tangential ancient god worship being put in the context of these people. Because Kang is also Kronos, right? The god of time. And Kronos is Saturn. See what I'm saying? And Saturn is the father. And in both those movies, in Creed, right? Both of their fathers have been taken from them. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Then at the same time, Kang in the movie, Creed, had been locked up, which means he lost time, you see? And then came out when little Creed was up. And then shortened the distance of the time by manipulating the time that he had while he was out to become the champion. You see what I'm saying? Which is exactly what happened with Jonathan Majors. He basically jumped from Lovecraft Country to one of the biggest franchises in the world within like 3 months. We never seen that happen.
Right.
So again, we're watching this whole play of ancient deities and archetypes through superheroes, through melanated males. You see what I'm saying? Which represent the dark matter, which represent the old gods. You see what I'm saying? Who have now become the new devils. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, they was definitely going to eventually sacrifice him, just like they did in the movie. And what's crazy is in that Lovecraft Country, what happened? Your boy Omar, right, from The Wire, plays the homosexual Freemason. See what I'm saying? Who winds up living at the end after doing all of the horrible shit. See what I'm saying? But then in real life, winds up ODing off the fentanyl, allegedly. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
See what I'm saying? Same way they got rid of Heath Ledger after Dark Knight. Allegedly ODing on the fentanyl. See what I'm saying? It's all big clay. That's why when you get involved with them people, you got to make sure your shit is totally on the up and up, because you're dealing with nothing but witches and warlocks. That's what you're dealing with. And all of them are down with it. All of them are baby witches or head witches or whatever in play in reality. Not one of them is not down with it in some way, form, or fashion.
Indeed.
And you have to be a liar. You have to be a liar to be down with it. Ice Cube wasn't no gangster, but he knew how to write and act like one. See what I'm saying? And everybody cool with it. You know how many people this nigga inspired to go down the path of destruction? And he was one of the conscious ones. America's Most Wanted is one of the greatest albums ever made. He did it with the Bomb Squad.
Now, see, that's a very interesting point. That's a very, very interesting point. You know, the funny thing about Ice Cube made a movie called Triple X. Was it Enemy of the State?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Great movie.
Now, the funny thing about that movie is when you first see Ice Cube, you know, of course he's locked up. But when they're explaining who he is, when they're showing the little montage, they actually show a picture of America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
Just to let you know that this is that character. They understand who they're showing you and how and why. And then by the end of the movie, he takes the arrow for the president.
Yep. He saved the hood. The ghetto is America's last hope. That's what that whole shit was about. That it's going to be the ghetto that fucking help save America. And it's the truth. It's the truth, man. And you know, that's what made that movie great. However, it don't change the fact that, you know, he still was down with the going left, going down the left, hip hop going down the left hand path, you know. And it ain't never been thing since. This ain't dissing the West Coast per se. However, gangster culture, like we in New York, we deaded the gangs. That like when I was growing up, it was the Black Spades and the Jolly Stompers and the it was mad at them. You know, hip hop came out, all that stuff went away. So by the time the late '90s came through, and then we started hearing Crips and Bloods in America, in New York, like what? There's Crips and Bloods now? Like when we start doing that? You know what I'm saying? But I was older by that point, so I wasn't popular in my era. But then that became what it was, all the way up to Pop Smoke, who they just let his killer out today, or like last week, and he was like the savior of New York rap to me. There was nobody else coming out that really was dope like that to me. But they got rid of all of these people, man. They got rid of all of them, B.
Well, you know, in preparation for today, I went back and I looked at The Wire from Omar.
Yeah, with Omar.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? When they sacrificed Michael K. Williams, first and foremost, it was on 9/6, which is Idris Elba's birthday. And it was in Brooklyn, New York, which is 9/06 in Gematria in the Sumerian cipher. And Michael K. Williams comes to 960. And then it was 19 years to the day with 96 days after the debut of The Wire. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know.
You know what I mean? See what I'm saying, bro? They got all of these dudes on the schedule. And you just got to be waiting for your time. Like, it's messed up, man. That's why you got to create your own stuff outside of that, man. And create your own path. So that way you don't get caught up with them with that stuff, because they find a way to get you, man. You find a way. And when you live in that lifestyle, and then you know you also into the sodomite stuff and all of that, you definitely in that vein. So I would suggest to everybody that's listening, man, like really do you really get your own thing popping. Find ways to create entertainment that feeds your soul, or find stuff that inspires you to do so. Create your own stories, create your own characters, create your own aspects of that. So that way this next generation has a whole nother vein to look forward to of creation, as opposed to just regurgitating the same cursed characters these niggas been putting out all these years that they don't have no energy for no more.
That is a beautiful segue to bring us to one of my absolute favorite books of all time, Dark Skull 418. I'm thankful and honored to say I have one of the first editions.
Thank you, man. That new story coming out. It's out now. People been getting it, so thanks for that support.
Most definitely. Can you tell us a little bit about this latest edition, and also tell us about your app? Because your app is pristine.
Thank you,
I love how much content you have. You have so much content, especially, and shout out again to your Empress, your organic line, her organic line. To have everything in one central hub where you run everything, and that's one thing I've always respected about you. You never leaned on when you stood next to somebody too long and they was on some bullshit. You got the fuck away. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, thank you for peeping that. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? With and let me be crystal clear here. Without having to slander. Without having to do anything other than let actions speak for themselves for those who paying attention, because you have always epitomized letting a hint to the wise be sufficient.
Indeed, boy.
So can you please enlighten us about some of these wonderful new endeavors you have been embarking on?
Thank you, bro. Yeah, man, the Dark Skull 418, that came out of a time when I was literally, me and the Queen had gone through it. We basically was burnt out with the so-called conscious community itself, because a lot of the stuff that we had been talking about on the Blog Talk Radio for that 7 years prior to us moving out here, it just got to a point where, you know, we had survived poisonings and you know, being so-called blacklisted and just you know what I mean, just kind of done dirty by people who allegedly was supposed to be cool with us, and you know, we all supposed to be doing the same thing, and we actually wasn't. So it just got to a point where it's like, I gotta protect my family and all of that and get us in a higher octave. And so I really worked, also being one of the only Moors, you know what I mean, active in the game like that, you know, around people who were mostly Freemasons and other things, wasn't the main way to go. Because, you know, they don't really like that nationality talk and stuff like that, solution-based material. They don't really like that. So I pivoted and basically consolidated all my material and started. I didn't let anybody sell my stuff for me anymore. I did it all myself through my own platforms and my own vehicles. And so by the time we moved out, before we moved out here though, we were kind of at the lowest point. And we was living upstairs from like a crack den. Like the brother that had the apartment, Brownstone living in, you know, he was doing his thing. He was a really good brother, you know what I mean? I never had any run-ins or any issues with him, but you know, I knew that that's what they was doing on it. So I knew eventually, you know, we definitely need to be up out of that situation. But we didn't have no other avenue to go. And, you know, we didn't have any place to stay or whatever, so we did what we had to do. And living upstairs was great, because one day I just was looking at one of these old books, I think it was The Watchmen, and I was like, you know what? I started out as an artist and a writer, like my dad, you know, bless the dead, and I still am into that. So why don't I do something with this instead of just saying? And then it just came to me. And then I started writing that night. And I just wrote until it was done, maybe almost a year later. And then I consolidated it, got a professional editor, edited it down, got it where I needed it to go, and then got a printer and literally said, I'm going to just do it myself. I was going to shop it to in DC and all that. I was like, well, why am I going to do that? They're going to mess it up. And I really wanted it to be, like I said, like an allegorical story about how we are dealing with things and how the power is really within us. Because at the time I was studying what's called the VMAT2 gene. And that's the gene, the actual gene that is representative of spirituality. There's an actual gene that ties you into everything universally and spiritual. And how the government has been trying to create things to shut that down. Everybody talks about the pineal organ, but they don't ever talk about the VMAT2 gene. So from there, it developed into the Gospel 14, and the characters started to come out from there. So I wanted them to be archetypical, but I wanted them to have their own voices. You know what I mean? Almost like real people. And it really developed into that. You know what I mean? The Midnight Man would be, I guess, similar to the Punisher. Only difference is he's a serial cop killer. You know what I mean? But he wasn't just killing cops for no reason. He was only going after the dirty ones, and it eventually evolved into a whole sect of people who follow behind him. You know what I mean? Who started to become the Midnight Men. And so that became a big thing. And other characters like Captain Marvelous, who basically is a life-based character, you know. But she was an actress, you know what I mean, whose name was April Sunday, who really loved acting and stuff, but wound up doing this movie about Sojourner Truth. And the director is a straight vampire, you know what I mean? Where they hired her just so that way she could do the movie, just so that way they could get her out there, just so they could sacrifice her. So another character, Mr. Mike Shine. He's kind of like Green Lantern, but he's found a microphone hidden away, a magic microphone hidden away at the record label, as he busted them doing rituals over his masters when he when he submitted them, and wound up trying to escape, and in that taking the microphone, and when whatever he raps into the microphone becomes real. He can create constructs and stuff with it. So, in going into that and learning who these characters were and giving them their own voices, it really was able to think. So recently I've been blessed to be able to put it out now in full color, as I kind of saw it. And instead of doing a straight comic book, I did it as a comic book novel. So it promotes more literacy aspect of it, but the characters that I drew were able to be redrawn and hooked up by great artists. One of basically the forerunner of what they call Afrofuturism type art, this brother named Mashindo Kumba. One of the
Shout out to Mashindo. Shout out to Mashindo, most definitely.
Greatest artists of our generation who really don't get the burn he's supposed to get.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying at all, yo. But shout out to Mashindo, man. Absolutely the best.
Inspired so much that people don't even realize. But working with him, working with Sustain, a brother and his wife have a company called Sustain. They helped basically get the book formatted properly and done properly. The original colored version of the movie poster cover was done by a brother named Daniel Asbury L. He was one of the first people to color the joint for me, and I was able to redistribute it now and get it where it is now, and added a lot more to it, so it gives a greater context to what's basically going to be the Dark Skullverse, which is going to be now all of the books and the materials and the toys and stuff that come out of that. Hopefully the animated series and stuff coming out of that, where the animation is based upon how it looks, the characters look in the book. So that way, the new one I'm writing now, is basically going to be like not a follow-up to it, but kind of like working tangential to it, because eventually each book I'm kind of doing it the way that Marvel did the movies. So each book kind of introduces the next person, and eventually the last book is going to have like all of them together from the Dark Skullverse. Instead of just doing a continuation of that, I'm doing now like the stuff that was happening while that was happening. So this way, when they all eventually come together, it's like a big thing, and people can get all of the book, how it developed, So this way, when I go to Netflix or I go to, whoever, to be like, look, this is how it's supposed to look. This is how it's going to be. So from that, I started my own publishing company, my own, publishing, as well as studio. So this way, instead of just giving them the book, they got to take the studio, publishing company, you see what I'm saying? And we work more of it in the distribution aspect. So this way I can control it as much as possible and not sell it out the way Lucas sold out Star Wars and shit. So this way it'll always maintain what it is, and it won't be the same old tropes. When somebody died, they stay dead. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's another situation, and it won't be just different versions of the same characters, to make it more interesting. And that way everybody can see themselves as well as others. So it ain't just going to be all just melanated people. It's going to be, It's going to be mostly melanated people because it's coming from that point of view. But I also got Caucasian characters, Asian characters, you know what I'm saying? In the Dark Skull 14, one of the characters is Indian. Basically, he's like our Doctor Strange, but he's Dr. Conundrum. And he found a cosmic t-shirt press where he was able to print out a cosmic t-shirt that allows him to tap into all of the ancient magics that exist. You know what I mean? So it's grounded in a lot of reality, but then, added with that. So I call it super historic sci-fi fantasy. that allows us all to, escape, but then also again promote literacy as opposed to just coming out with a straight comic or straight picture book. It's kind of like a mixture of both. So between that and the app, with the app, it's the same thing. Again, working with the brother and sister from Sustain, great duo. And I was talking to him maybe a year and a half ago about doing it, and we were actually able to really get it done. So I'm upgrading some of it now. People can go on there because I got all of the technical difficulties and all of the messed up stuff that they be doing to me on YouTube and all of that. So God forbid any of that crashes, people can go directly to the app. You know what I mean? And I can speak and work with the people directly through that. They can see all of my material before it goes to YouTube, before it goes to or Rumble or anything. That I always put the stuff up at least a week or a month before. So people on the app get the stuff early, and I can go directly and say exactly what I want to say and show and prove on it. And like I said, I have more control over my users and my subscribers, so that way they don't have to worry about their data being shared and all of that other type of shit. You know what I mean? And in that, build up my subscriber list. So this way, when it comes to if I want to do a fundraiser or I want to come out with the animated movie and stuff, I can debut it on the app. You know what I mean? Everybody can see it there, and then we can do a live after, discuss what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it. And now, like I said, I have my own built-in audience, so I ain't got to worry about doing other people's platforms and all of this major stuff. You know what I mean? Kind of stay in my own lane, and eventually they'll veer into mine if they want to work. And if not, it don't matter. Because it's not always about glorifying the ego, It's more about making the work speak for itself. So I can also debut other people, other Moors, other channels that I support that's doing the work, such as yours, you know what I mean? Or anybody else's that has books that want to come out and stuff. I'll be able to start doing like interviews and lives and stuff through the app itself. And then work out something. If somebody wants to advertise directly, they can do it directly through me, and then we work it out. But this way, I can support those who have been supporting me, and kind of keep a closed loop on it. You know what I mean? So God forbid something happened with my YouTube page or any of that, I still got that. And then with the Cordoba Organics, the Queen has been working hard on that for years, and she's built up a great clientele with that because it's the only 100% Moorish owned, 100% all organic, no chemicals, no parabens, no anything artificial in it on the market today. No, not even no shea butter. You know what I mean? It's all real. So this way, like I said, man, we could just keep it going and keep it direct with the people. So I appreciate you having me on and being able to advertise it and all of that.
It has been an absolute honor to have you, brother. You have epitomized every word that you just said your entire career. I want to make these facts very, very clear. I tend to pay attention without paying attention, but I am like a magnet to excellence. You have always displayed everything that you do in the utmost excellence, and you've always been one of my favorite power couples.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
It is so needed. It is so refreshing to see a woman and a man not only work together, but every time I see you two, you're like teenagers,
Thank you,
and you're always all over each other, and I mean that in the best way. It is truly elegant to see. I wish more people would bite that. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Nah, it's real. It's real, more. You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
We've been together almost 20. It'll be 27 years
Salute.
This October, inshallah, on Randolph's birthday.
Inshallah.
Last birthday, yeah. Praise Allah. So I appreciate it, man. For real, I appreciate all the support, man, over the years. And, you know, you doing what you're doing, because there's not many that do it without any guile, without any ego, you know what I'm saying, who genuinely want to see the people win, man. And the more of us support each other like that, the better it is, you know what I'm saying? And the more we show that we're more than the sum of our parts, man, because in the end, we all we got, you know? And, you know, unfortunately, the devils today, a lot of them look exactly like us. So when we can actually be a elevated version of ourselves by being ourselves, this is what allows us to be true immortals, you know? So thank you again for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Posting the links and everything. I really appreciate it.
By all means, brother. This will not be the last time.
Man, we're gonna do it again.
You know what I mean? Anything I can ever do to help, do to promote, you just let me know.
Brother. You as well, brother. You know, like I said, I got a whole new platform now, so I'm gonna definitely have this. If you send me the link, I'll be able to post it, and then, like I said, at the same time, post your info so people can also check it as well. And then we just keep doing it back and forth, you know?
Most definite. For those who do not speak or aren't familiar with Latin, the name of tonight's episode is Scientia et Aurum, which means knowledge is gold.
Is gold. That's right, boy.
You will not. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right. That's right, brother. You know, like I said, man, big up to all of the elders that aren't here anymore, that don't get referenced in the community like they should, and everybody else, because that's how we came up, man. We wouldn't be able to be here if it wasn't for a lot of them that's not even here no more, you know what I mean? Brother Azariah, Brother Dawood, Prince Uriel Bey, Dr. Ben, Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Sabi, like everybody, man. Everybody that was around when it wasn't cool to do knowledge and shit like that. While we was studying and going to lectures and reading books and stealing books out the library and all of that, like these were the ones that was really holding us down. John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams, Francis Cress Wilson, everybody, man. Myra Shearer L, Don Newkirk L, everybody, man. Everybody that was at the forefront to this when it wasn't cool to do the knowledge and all of that. You know what I mean? We definitely give honors and praise and respect to them. Honor to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. And, you know, everybody, man. I really appreciate you having me on, bro.
It is an absolute honor, you know, to give you some honor, to give you some flowers,
Thank you, sir.
to have a wonderful conversation. We didn't get to anything, folks. You know what I'm saying?
I know. Next time, though, we're going to get even further, man, for real.
Most definitely. It is a beautiful thing, man. I wish you success in every endeavor, every dimension. Please give the family all my love, and we will speak soon, brother.
Inshallah, sooner than later, man. We definitely will. And like I said, man, one monkey don't stop no show. They want to try to mess it up one way, but it turns into something else, you know? So from water to wine, inshallah. So thank you again for having me, brother. And honestly, your audience, thank you guys for the support. And again, posting the links and stuff. I really appreciate it, bro.
Most definitely. I want to say love, peace, and power to everybody who was joining us tonight. Your presence is always a priceless gift I never take for granted. Please share the video, like the video, tap in with Aseer. When I tell you it's a small picture, forgive me for not having a larger, I'm still learning my ways around this enterprise.
Me too, bro. It's all good.
The cover to Dark Skull 418 is one of my favorite pictures of all time. And you know what? Before I get out of here, something I wanted to say. You mentioned the Watchmen. For anybody familiar with the Watchmen series on HBO, which was written and executive produced by Damon Lindelof, who also did the Lost series, right?
Yeah. And it was written by the chick that did Lovecraft Country.
Indeed. They pay attention. So when you look at what was her name, Sister Midnight?
Yeah.
Well, she very similar to the cover of Dark Skull.
You peeped it, right?
You see what you see what I'm saying? So for 500 pages plus of absolute literary genius and artistic splendor, please tap in and get you a copy of Dark Skull 418. And thank you, Magical Kawhi, Sister Night. Thank you, Sister Night. That's right. I want to say love, peace, and power to everybody joining us, man. Thank you. We will be back again soon. I'll be back on Friday or Saturday. Love your people, man, and love each other. Love yourself. You are the only story in town. Love, peace, and power.
Love, peace, and power to the people, man. Islam.